I'm Bill Barry. Welcome to my desert adventures. Today we'll be exploring some of the Desert Training Center's World War II camps and learn a little bit about the history that led to their development. In February of 1941, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel arrived in North Africa to rescue the Italian army from the constant threat of the British armed forces. Nazi Germany wanted to maintain dominance of the desert territories in their push to take control of the Suez Canal. On December 7, 1941, the United States declared war on the Japanese, and a few days later, Nazi Germany declared war on the United States. Preparations for war were in high gear. The actions in North Africa were of great concern to the Allied forces, and many U.S. war strategists knew that they would soon have to send troops into those foreboding deserts. Large-scale desert warfare requires elaborate and precise planning. Just because the desert is vast and open does not mean that tank divisions can freely roam. Tank fleets are chained irresistibly to their supply lines, and a single failed supply convoy or lost column of trucks can stop the entire offensive dead in its tracks. In March of 1942, just 3 months after the declaration of war, Major General George S. Patton, Jr. was appointed commanding general of the Desert Training Center. Patton knew what was needed. In a speech to his troops, he said, "The war in Europe is over for us. England will probably fall this year. Our first chance to get at the enemy will be in North Africa. We cannot train troops to fight in the desert of North Africa by training in the swamps of Georgia. I sent a report to Washington requesting a desert training center in California. The California desert can kill quicker than the enemy. We'll lose a lot of men from heat, but the training will save hundreds of lives when we get into combat. I want every officer and section to start planning on moving all of our troops by rail to California." With that, he quickly began establishing camps all over the California and Arizona deserts. My friends Robert Marcos and Sid Burks met at my house so that we could plan our trip. We did most of our planning looking at Google Earth.
Google Earth is one of the most amazing tools I've ever used. I've been exploring the desert for almost 50 years. I started as a park ranger back in the 1970s over in Anza Borrego. And you use topo maps and a compass to find whatever you could. And then you randomly searched by walking either the wash or the ridge, and you are always just kind of stumbling around. Google Earth gives you the opportunity to find what you're looking for and zero down to within about 6 or 7 feet. And so I'm able to find things that I never would have found.
With our targets clearly identified on Google Earth, we headed out to Rice Airfield and Camp Rice. When we arrived at the remnants of Rice Airfield, it was pretty clear that we were at a very large military installation. Many concrete structures, 2 5,000-foot-long runways, disbursement plans for parking airplanes, and a taxiway that was almost 1.5 miles long. We know that they used the A-20 Havoc attack bomber along with P-39 Cobras at Rice Airfield. Once we explored the old airfield, we headed over to the Rice Camp. This is where they housed almost 30,000 men. But it wasn't that easy to find everything.
Can't tell exactly where we are in the camp, so I think what we need to do is get the drone up, get a look at get some elevation so we can see the lines, and then we'll kind of know where we are.
Once we got the drone in the air, we were able to make our way to the camp headquarters. There were a number of walkways that were clearly visible, still left over from almost 80 years. It must have been something, all of those men living in this harsh desert environment. Thousands of soldiers who didn't realize where they were headed. Today, the desert walkways left over from that era are all that you see. There's no sign of tents or equipment or tanks or artillery or airplanes.
So we're at an intersection of sorts, probably a divisional camp here, where you had different squadrons on different sides of this intersection. There would have been hundreds or maybe even thousands of tents, and the tents probably had between 4 and 8 soldiers each. So these camps were actually capable of training many thousands of soldiers at the same time, and that's why they had so many camps in order to process 2 million soldiers over a 2-year period.
We were able to discover a number of debris pits. The leftover cans from that era still exist, and they do tell a story.
This looks like a burn pile here. They melted. This is a burn.
Oh, they dug this ditch.
It's all been melted, right? And
Yeah.
yeah. So the remnants of this is all a result of a burn pile.
Those tiny ridges, they use
Yeah,
one of
it
those
is.
devices.
Yeah, GI can. And there's an oil can over there that you can still read the markings on.
Ancient clues about a time long gone. Well, we had our time at Camp Rice, and so from there we decided to head over to Camp Iron Mountain to see the altar that had been built for non-denominational church services. Camp Iron Mountain was another large divisional camp. On our way to Camp Rice early in the morning, the sun reflected off of the altar and we were able to see it clearly from the roadway. We didn't want to miss this substantial remnant of the past. It was one of the largest pieces of history that you're able to see at any of the camps. We also wanted to get a look at the large-scale topographic map that had been built back in 1940. They built this showing the surrounding mountains so that they could plan maneuvers. The relief map has been fenced off by the Bureau of Land Management and you can't access it. It's protected for future generations. Well, that's about it for that day. It was a busy day where we got to relive the history of the Desert Training Center from 1942 to 1944. Our next adventure is going to be out in Camp Essex. It's about a 3-hour drive and we plan to camp overnight. We look forward to showing you more about the Desert Training Center and the numerous camps that are found all over the Southern California desert.